Okay, I am live. Let's say what I'm going to be live about. Oh, am I doing it? Nope. Okay, there we go. That's the topic today. And let's see if I can pin this comment. Whoop, there we go. I'm getting it done. Hey to everybody in the room. It's really early here in the UK. It's probably quite late in other parts of the world. But I woke up with just some thoughts and some inspiration this morning, and I didn't want to wait until later to try and express it, because what happens is I get really busy and then I never end up doing it. So I was like, the energy is here, the message is here, let me come and talk about this topic now. And because I don't know how long I'm going to be and I prefer to engage with Instagram, I thought, let me just do it on live, and then I'll save the live video and I can upload that to YouTube if I want to, or anywhere else. So the topic today is attacks on the feminine principle, feminine energy on a political level, because I know it's in the consciousness of a lot of us. A lot of us are thinking about it, a lot of us are engaging with that, and I want to be able to talk about it from a spiritual perspective, as I said I would in other videos, really starting to give a lot more context and some more grounding. So what I want to do before I get into the nitty gritty, and I've written some notes because I didn't want to get lost in the thread of what I'm saying, so if you see me glancing down a lot, it's because I'm checking my notes. So what I want to do is just get some terminology straight as I start this out, so that you don't get lost in what I'm saying, because we're all rethinking gendered language. And so for the most part, I'll be talking about feminine and masculine as an energy, not as physical biology, not as a gender. There will be times when I will refer to being a woman. I will use gendered terms, and I will try to remember to state that that's what I'm doing. But I want you to think about feminine energy and masculine energy as something that we all hold, right? It's composite. We're all parts of that. So to make it clear, I'm going to give you some examples just to make that. I'm a teacher by vocation, so I'm going to break it down. So here's my first example. If we think about the physical body, let's think about flesh, muscle and bone as form, and therefore masculine energy, and we would think of blood and water as feminine energy. But of course the body is made up of all of those different materials, okay? So it's not a concept that it's just I'm trying to demonstrate to you that you are both of those things. So when you're hearing messages about feminine, it's for you. If you're hearing messages about masculine, it's about you. So listen on both sides. Another concept and idea, another way of relaying this message, concept and idea. Now normally we would give let me say that in a second. So concept and idea, you have a vision, you have a belief, you have something you want to do, feminine energy, and then the expression of that in the world, it taking form, masculine energy, okay? So internal, external. Someone's laughing, but I don't know why. I missed the joke. Maybe I said something funny before. Type to me why you were laughing. I want to laugh too. Another way of describing this, and the last one I'll give, is thought, okay? The mind, what's inside here. Now normally we talk about analysis, observation and rationale as masculine energy, but I want to flip it a bit here and say the internal mind, what's going on in here, thoughts and ideas, as feminine energy. Oh, she said it was an accident. No worries. As feminine energy, and then the sound that I'm making, the words that are coming out of my mouth, masculine energy, okay? So I want you to know that when I'm talking about feminine and masculine, I'm talking about all of you. So if you're identify as male and you're in a male body, this message about attacks on the feminine also relates to you. You have feminine energy. I hope that's super clear, okay? If you're confused at any point around what I mean by feminine and masculine energy, just leave me a comment and I'll try to clear it up. Okay, so now that's clear. Just two more things I want to say about this. if we all have feminine masculine energy to a different proportional distribution, okay, so I would say I am more feminine leaning, and recently I've been having like a awakening of my divine masculine. I would say in my personal life I'm quite feminine, in my career and my business I'm quite masculine, but when I'm doing tarot, which is a part of my business, I'm very feminine, you know, so it's an interplay of both energies. Now, if you've seen your astrological birth chart, it can really help you see the proportional distribution of those energies, because each of the zodiac energies are either feminine or masculine, okay? So Virgo, feminine, and I'm Cancer rising, feminine, okay? So you would look at your other placements as well, but you'll be able to see, oh, on a spectrum, I pretty much embody this kind of energy. Now, your physiology also matters to the way that you experience those energies, although it's not essentialist, okay? So if you're in a male body, it doesn't mean you're just going to have masculine energy or a predominantly masculine energy. But what it does mean, in my opinion, this is my true belief, I'm owning it as my own sense of wisdom, and I'll leave it at that. I do believe that when we come into physical bodies, we inherit not just trauma, we inherit blessings and gifts and all the rest of it, but we definitely get an inheritance, a physiological inheritance. So if you're in a body of a certain gender, a biological gender, so to speak, you also inherit some of the trauma, the responsibilities, the karma, so to speak, of that energetic expression. And my belief is, and I'll have to talk about this in a different video because we're talking about different topic, I just want to touch on it. My belief is that those who are non-binary and those who are trans have a very special and unique calling to help to heal and transmute the different energies, but by the transcendence of like over identifying with the physiology. So when we're very identified with something, we can be defensive. So for me, for example, I am cisgendered, I am a woman, I strongly identify as a woman, a black woman at that. And so if you're talking about feminine or femininity or gender, I could easily be very defensive around that because I strongly identify with that identity. Now, if I were trans, for example, I might be in a female presenting body, but be a masculine person. And that unique perspective gives me frees me of the over-identification with gender, and therefore gives me a unique perspective to be able to engage with the different energies, but also to bring healing and revisioning and reconstruction around that, which is what I think is really the power of both queer theory, queer expression. But this is not an academic debate on gender. I'm getting in my academic bag right now, so we'll come back to that. Let me pivot back to the astrology, or we're talking theory and politics a bit today. So I said all that to cover what I want to say around gender. So there's attacks on the feminine energy right now, and I want to talk about it because it's very visible on the political level. So in the US, we know in a certain state there's been a kind of repealing of abortion rights. And the reason I'm bringing this up because the US is very specific. It holds a very, I want to say special, significant is the word. It holds a significant place in terms of the political, social, economic and spiritual realities that we're all engaging with. And because of this kind of more globalized economy, it tends to be at the center. It's in the center. It's what we're all looking at. And so even like for me, for example, I'm in the UK, you tend to be very aware of what's happening in the political climate in the US, kind of wherever you are. So I want to bring that up because I feel like this change in abortion rights is an indication of this attack. There's also, I don't think it's any mistake at all that this week the police officer who murdered the pregnant woman is like present visually in our consciousness, okay? The murder of a mother, that the police representing the state, the authority, the patriarchy, literally murdering a pregnant woman, like it's so apparent. And I also want to say in the UK context, one of the things I was thinking about on a political level is deportation, particularly of Caribbean migrants, Caribbean residents, but it goes across the board. The kind of immigration policies we have right now is another attack on feminine energy. Now I say that because it affects both genders, of course, But I say that because the concept, it's a Cancer concept, Cancer energy as in the zodiac sign. Cancer is the fourth house, which represents home. Okay, so it's about disruption of family bonds and ties, emotional bonds, home, roots, place, physical safety. That's the feminine energy, that's the fourth house, that's what Cancer represents. And so it's a direct attack on those energies there. So we can see all over the place politically that the feminine is being like, they're coming after us. And I won't be being scary, and this is not like a woo, run away and hide kind of reading. I'm not that kind of person anyway. I will be showing you some cards because I spoke to the ancestors this morning about this topic. Sorry, my eyes are a bit funny. Okay, so I wanted to say that I'm not apolitical, and so I'm so aware of this because most of you know I come from an academic background, but it isn't that. I mean, I'm intellectual in how I articulate ideas, but I don't necessarily bring theory into my astrological or tarot practice in ways that I definitely can. But I just don't feel called to, and it can be a bit of a tension for me. So I want to say that, you know, I look, I observe, I see what's happening. Even when I'm not speaking on it, it doesn't mean that I don't care, or that I think this is just like a spiritual space where those things don't matter. It's just that I don't think I have cultivated quite yet the language to talk about these things in ways that's not about outrage or theorizing it. Now, both outrage and theory are functional. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have those things, okay? Outrage is really important when we are being violated. It is a healthy and natural response to violation. And theory is really significant because we need to understand the implications of what's happening to us. So it's not a critique of either of those two energies. I'm just saying it's not my specific calling to engage in that way. So what is my calling then? What role do I play in this conversation? Well, my work is similar to that of a counsellor. So, you know, if you go to, any of you who've been to therapy, or maybe there are therapists in the room, if you go to a therapy session and you're talking about things that have happened to you and you're exploring, you know, challenges, conflicts, childhood trauma, all the rest of it, you don't want your therapist to be in such a state of outrage at what's happened to you that their emotions and feelings start taking up the space in the session. Okay, if you're crying about something's happened, you want your therapist to start crying and then go, gosh, yeah, because one time my mum said to me. No, that's not what that space is for. Part of the healing dynamic of therapy is having a space to be held where it is focused on you. And that is part of my role in terms of having detached observation, and not detached as in not caring. There's a detachment in love, detached observation of what's happening socially and politically, and then out of that showing you the patterns, and in this case the patterns of the spiritual energy. So a therapist would listen to you and see what's happening and say to you, you know, these are the kinds of patterns that are playing out. Maybe you have anxious attachment. They're going to show you, they're going to analyze and observe and show you your pattern so you can break that pattern. That's my role, okay? So my role is to observe what's happening politically and socially, to show you the spiritual overlay so that you can break out of those paradigms of political oppression. Does that make sense? Those of you in the room, let me know I'm making sense. I just want to check that I'm not going, I speak really quickly, so let me slow down, that I'm not going too fast, and that I'm not being too complex, because this is an important message I want people to be able to comprehend. So send me if you can't type because of where you're watching, please send me a heart. Perfect, thank you. Or a comment completely. Heart was what I was going to request as well. I see the heart, I get that you understand me. Perfect. Okay, so part of the reason that the feminine is experiencing this attack, feminine energy that is actually because of our liberation. And at this point I'm going to start using a couple of cards to demonstrate it to you. So the card that Spirit gave me to describe this is the Six of Air. If you notice I have a little bit of a tremor, I do have a tremor generally, and I literally have not eaten yet. I've only had water. So that will be the reason for it. Hopefully it's not too distracting for you. But this is the card. The bird hair would represent the feminine energy. This is about freedom. This is about progress. This is about moving you know, the idea of the freedom of flight, of exploration, of being able to, I can't describe it in any other ways, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then we have got to a point of liberation, particularly economically. I can say that as a self-employed Black woman, you know, who earns and maintains and looks after myself by the fruit of my own labor. You have no idea. I actually feel tearful. You have no idea how radical that is for me, that how radical that is for me as a Black woman, and how radical that is for me as a working class Black woman. We are doing things that are, and I'm speaking in gendered terms here, our mothers and our grandmothers could not, and not in terms of self-employment, because, you know, my grandma was self-employed at points, but in terms of the sustainability financially that I'm able to generate and so many other women. That is a point of absolute liberation from dependency on a very destructive, violent capitalist system. And not that I exist outside of capitalism. I'm under no whatever the word is, there's no wool over my eyes on that. We've also had a lot of political liberation. So in terms of the repeal, and also referring to the abortion rights, the fact that we, you know, abortions are legalized in many places, political engagement, political representation, whatever what you want to call it, we are in a different space. The fact that gendered again, women can vote, all the rest of that. Education, as a woman who embarked on a PhD, okay, like I said, we normally would understand the thought process, the inner mind, as masculine rational energy, but I described it in earlier as feminine energy. So bringing the wisdom of indigenous knowledge, of emotion, of experience, of feeling, and of intellect into academic institutions is the gift of feminine energy. I hold a lot of feminine energy, so, you know, I guess that's why I kind of collapsed the two, like being gendered as feminine and having feminine energy, because I'm both. But there's been so much freedom. And just turning my notes over, sexuality, contraception, for example. I could go on and on. I think those of us who are kind of living in the world at this moment can see the differences. There's spiritual liberation as well. And really, I wouldn't even say as well. I would say all of those things are expressions of a spiritual liberation and the rising, as I say, in kind of light work and new age communities, rising of the divine feminine. So let's describe what I mean by that. On a spiritual level, what we've experienced is Pluto/Scorpio energy. Now, Scorpio is a deep water sign. It's ruled by Pluto and Mars. It's a magnetic, it's powerful, it's destructive, but in healthy ways. Sometimes not, let's be honest, Scorpio, but it's destructive. And it's about regeneration and renewal, and it's a feminine energy. Okay, that's what Scorpio represents, and that's what we've been experiencing as divine feminine, the awakening of the divine feminine, which is reclaiming particularly our power, but not our power as external exertion. Okay, so not necessarily power as warfare, but power is autonomy, power is control, power is truth, and also it is the power of expressing anger and rage. And we've seen so much of that from both people gendered as women and from the feminine energy in general. We've seen what is kind of erupted as a bit of a gender war at the moment, but we've seen that happen. We've seen the expression of what it means to have endured centuries of abuse. We're now seeing the backlash of some of that. And so as we have found this kind of freedom and a power to move and to step out into the world, the response to that has been this, and is this figure lying on the floor, being feminine energy, and the birds that are literally devouring and attacking her being the political system we live in, the patriarchy, the malevolent forces that move and operate on those levels. And so the messages that are coming under attack purely for the basis of our freedom. Like, no one's like, oh, you want to empower yourself? Cool, get on with that. Like, It doesn't work that way, okay? When we take back our power, there is a battle, a power struggle of some kind, and the attacks on the feminine right now are an expression of that. Now, there's a reason for it beyond just like, I don't want you to have your power. On a spiritual level, it's about the reconstruction or to reinstate the trauma matrix. What do I mean by that? I mean, like, you know how Catholics have this concept of original sin that I don't agree with? We are all born into a matrix of pain. There is so much trauma, okay? So much violence. There's so much that is harmful about living in this world. And the reason that trauma's the matrix, which is literally the cradle that we get born into, the experiences that just layer and layer and layer and layer on each other. The reason there is an intention from darker forces to give us a trauma matrix, and particularly to direct that trauma matrix at the feminine energy, and the masculine experiences it too, that's a separate video. But the ways that the feminine experience is important, because both, let me just say the point and then I'll clarify it. It's rooting into the energy and the archetype of the mother, okay? And what does the mother do? Births children. So if the mother and the womb space is unsafe, is full of trauma and pain and sexual violence, then before anything has happened, the child that comes through that has experienced that energy. They're touched by it immediately. They're shaped by it immediately. They're needing healing immediately. So that's why I bring up this idea of original sin. Like, as soon as we're born, we experience all of this trauma to kind of like density to work through. And then for those, it's not just about physical motherings, it's not just about birthing children, but it's also the concept of creativity, which sits in the Empress energy, which sits in the feminine energy, mother archetype as well. So it means that whatever you create also has the seeds of trauma and violence and pain. And one of the things I was thinking about is the film industry. And we can see that there. I remember watching, I can't stand Tarantino anyway, but one day I was hanging with my aunt and we were looking for a film, and I was like, you know, because I like Samuel L. Jackson as an actor. I was like, let's watch Hateful Eight. Who told me, listen, one, that film was, I was going to swear, but I'm going to continue to swear, fucking long, okay? So long, but so violent and depraved, like, whew, that man's spitting, right? I'm just telling you. The level of violence in that film, I mean, it was violent altogether, but there was specific, exaggerated, disgusting violence towards the female character in the movie. And it's that, right? It's that concept of like all our feeling my way as a motherhood and trauma. Yeah, it's all of our, it's what we create, it's what we imagine, it's what we design. If all we've ever known is pain and trauma, then that's what we seed, right? That's what we create, that's what we reproduce, that's what we watch, you know, that's what we normalize, all the rest of that jazz. So that's why that is really important. Let me just check my notes for a second. Yes. Now, for a lot of the time, some of what the attacks on the feminine can be very covert. Like, it's really funny how fast, don't you know, sometimes like how political change happens very so it's seemingly quickly, laws get passed, just things just get moving when it's something that you want, right? When it's something that is seemingly progressive for us, when it's expanding rights and expanding freedoms, that takes months and weeks and legislation. But when it seems to be pulling back our rights, our security, for example, or internet rights, all of that stuff seems to happen quickly, overnight, in the shadows, done. And it's because for those of you, I'm House of Cards, but I'm gonna leave it there. For those of you who've seen that, only because of the abuse of the main character, or he's a perpetrator, he's an abuser, has been, which is why I don't really want to reference that. But for those of you who've seen the kind of political mechanisms that go on behind the scenes, the concept here is that we normally see the attack on the feminine at the point, if we're talking about looking at it through the metaphor of a gun, we see it when the trigger's pulled, right? We don't see the person loading the gun, putting it in the pocket, walking up to us. Do you know what I mean? We always see the attack at the end. And because so much happens covertly, but I feel what's happening with the retrograde transit, so Pluto again, what's done in secret, power, secret exchanges of power, Saturn representing the patriarchy here, Jupiter being a magnifying glass and expanding things. All of those planets retrograde are making what is normally hidden seen, okay? It's really revealing the true intentions and agendas of those who pretend to represent us, particularly politically, and pretend to have our best interests at heart. Okay, let me turn my notes. So, hopefully I've kind of expounded and made sense on the attacks on the feminine. And I'm sure, well, let me ask you, since some of you are in the room, do you want to comment and tell me any other ways that you see the feminine being attacked right now? Feminine energy, or those gendered as women specifically? It would be great also if you could talk about attacks on the feminine energy for those who are male bodies. I'll give you a second to type comments. I see the love though, I see the hearts. I appreciate it. Whew, take a breath. I'll give you a couple of more minutes just for those who might still be typing. Be brave, be bold. It's a safe classroom. Okay, I'm going to move on, but if you are still typing or you want to share or you have any thoughts, or maybe if you want to question and say, could it be this? Then still leave the comment and I will respond when and if I see it. Okay, so if we understand attacks on the feminine energy, then for me, as a pragmatic and very practical Virgo, my next thought is what to do about that. Like, I'm not just going to leave it out, oh, I see it's happening. Like, I'm like, okay, Spirit, so what's the work? Okay, what do we do? So I have some cards for you. I'll show you them all at once and then I'll talk them through. First card is Three of Cups. This deck is Tarot of the Orisha. Shout out to Sacred Life Tarot. I said that slowly because she's changed her Instagram handle. I was trying to remember it. So she has read for me a couple of times. She's who I go to. She's my friend, and when I need readings I go to her, and she reads for me with these cards, and they've been so powerful that I got them myself. And listen, the ancestor communication is fire. So yeah, that's just a separate point. We got Three of Cups. We got Oshamare here. Really love the name Oshamare for the record. And we got Nine of Swords, but it also came up in reverse. So let's talk about the messages. Starting with the Three of Cups here. The message for the Three of Cups really is Trinity and union, being the three: divine feminine energy, divine masculine energy, and then God source, creator, whatever you want to call it, Holy Spirit being involved to create this Trinity. Now, it's water energy, so it's happening within the space of the water element, and the main message that came through was the need to feel, okay, bringing the feminine and the masculine energy together both internally, so integrating your own feminine and masculine. This is not a message about zodiac signs, I'm not going to reply to that. Integrating your own feminine and masculine energies, or integrating and bringing healing and unity between external feminine and masculine genders, right, and identities. Okay, so it's like both, when as above so below, when we integrate the energy, it's called Tarot of the Orishas. When we integrate the energy internally, then we could create space for it to be integrated externally as well. So how we do that is actually through the space of feeling, and that's why the pain trauma matrix is so effective, is because what do we do when we experience pain and trauma and difficulty? We shut down, right? I say this all the time. Doing this work has been so significant to my personal growth because it's required me to maintain an open heart. And if I didn't have to literally serve people from the spiritual energy from my heart chakra, I would have locked off. Seriously. If I was doing work that didn't require me to be open, I'd shut all the way down. There have been so many times where I've just been like, nah, I don't want to be sensitive, don't want to feel that, don't want to deal with that, and I would love to harden. I've even tried to, but every time the calling on my life requires me to open up. Yes, Rare, tell me why it's crazy that I'm saying this. I see you. So it is about staying open to feeling, okay? It's staying open, and the intragender discussions and therapy, I think men and women need to do healing with each other, then should be better when we interact with the other sex. I know who you are. I know it's you, Io. I didn't at first, but it was your profile picture. Yes, 100% agree with that. Remind me to come back to that point because I want to talk about it, but I want to give it a little bit of time. We all need to feel, okay? And we tend to think that those who are gendered as women do all the feeling, and that men feel less or ultimately shut down feeling because they're lost or haven't been trained to deal with emotion. We all actually respond to trauma by shutting down. And so the healing and the unity comes from remaining open, even to pain, because that's how you also heal and transmute it. Now, I want to show you something about or demonstrate something about the current astrology. Those of you who watch my stories saw me ranting after my dance class yesterday, and I was like, Mars in Cancer. Okay, and I'm Cancer rising, so that Mars energy just hit. So Mars is in Cancer right now, okay? And remember, Cancer is a feminine energy, represents the mother, represents home and roots. So Mars, the warrior, has entered the territory of the mother while I'm talking about attacks on the feminine. So really, it's actually quite good. It's a good transit for addressing this issue. Transit being the period of time that Mars will be in that sign. And then we have Venus, who's the Empress, okay, who represents feminine energy embodied in Taurus, okay? So let me tell you what both of these two energies, these two transits are saying to us right now. Mars in Cancer is either fighting for your home, what matters to you in your physical home, what matters to you in the home that is your heart, fighting for what you believe in, or it's fighting at home, okay? So that's how you want to think about that. It's either you're at war with your family or you're fighting to protect your family, and that's the energy we're getting mixed up here. Like, I'll say this, particularly as it relates to masculine energy, is we keep thinking we're in a war against men, and we're not, okay? We're in, as the biblical scripture says, we're in a war against like principalities. We're in a war against devilish, nefarious energies. Now, are there a large group of masculine or men, let's just call them, who are involved in maintaining this matrix? For sure. Someone posted on Instagram today, and it was early this morning, so I don't remember who, but they posted a picture of a woman in a political position signing the legislation for repealing abortion rights, and they were talking about, you know, the implication of particularly cisgendered white women in doing fucked up political shit. And that's my point. Not just that, it's not a kind of women to message, but it's the idea that it's an energy. Do you know what I mean? It's an energy, it's an ideology, like, and so we need to drop the gender war, and we need to, I'll talk about this in the end because there's a message around that specifically, but we need to be able to understand that, you know, like how there's a saying that not all your skin folk are your kinfolk, right? Like, not all black people can I ride for. Do you know what I mean? Like, conceptually, ideologically, yes, but when it comes down to it, not all of you are for us. Not all of you are for my liberation and empowerment. And it's the same, right? It's not about ostracizing or having a complete blanket concrete rejection of men itself, but we're going to reject what we are calling toxic masculinity. But have we located righteous masculinity? Are we integrating personally and forming relationships with righteous men? Are we? Anyway, don't get me on that because that's a longer talk. I'll come to it. This is part of the reason that I'm recruiting a team, because honestly, I am a teacher by vocation and I need to be spending my time doing this, and I'm doing way too much. So I really need help so I can get to the work that's really, really important, the work that is my specific gift. Like, there are certain things when it comes to planning an you're coming still, good. There's certain things that when it comes to planning an organization that is not unique to me that anybody can do. But this message is my gift, so I need space to operate in my gift. And so if you I put out a call for an intern and also help with my events, check that out on my post. So back to the message. Mars in Cancer, fighting for the home, but also feeling. Remember, Cancer represents the emotional level as well, the moon, the feeling, the hidden realm. Also feeling the rage, feeling the anger, allowing that to be expressed. But the thing about it is, normally Mars in, let's say Mars in Aries, Mars in Leo maybe too, so like Mars in fire signs, where else, maybe even Mars in air signs, we can express that power without, well, let me be clear, without the power of feeling, Cancer. When we use Mars energy, when we use our intention to fight for, to battle, to resist, to destroy, when we use our violence, to be honest, we do so without the wisdom of emotion, because emotions are wisdom, it's a form of knowledge, and we do what we create without the consciousness of emotion is war crimes, or to put it in a different way, depravity, or I wrote unchecked power. So the healing of Mars in Cancer is bringing the warrior home, so that we can have wisdom about remembering, one, what are we fighting for, and two, how to fight. Okay, like not all warfare, I hate saying this, I was going to say not all warfare is holy, but I know that that's a statement that could be mad triggering for a lot of people, so I'm gonna leave that alone. But you know, like the concept of having a, what am I looking for? A samurai, or like I'm thinking of like in Japanese traditions, they're warriors and they have like a code of honor or integrity. That's what I'm talking about. It's not that violence is a no altogether. Violence is required. I am not a person who thinks that the approach to everything is non-violence. I'm afraid I don't believe that. Violence is required, but there is a way to engage in warfare, and Mars in Cancer is trying to teach, particularly the feminine energy, the truth of that, because we all need to integrate our internal warrior. And I've been reading for people personally, so I've been saying to particularly women, people in female bodies, that there is a rise of the masculine within a lot of women right now, and it's expressing as uncontrolled anger, just rage, and heightened sexuality. And I don't say that to demonize sexuality. Sex is healthy, but it can just be like, what have we learned to do to use sex for manipulation? So if we are having an expansion of our sexual power coupled with a lot of anger and rage, then what we do is we become femme fatale, right? That's the archetype that we live through, which is sex that is destructive, sex that is manipulative, and all the rest of it. And to be honest, I'm thinking about the headlines that came out about Cardi and kind of what gang mentality is, and what she may or may not, what she's allegedly done as part of a gang to use her sexuality to get up on men, to get one over on men. It's that kind of energy. And so what's needing healing right now is for the feminine to understand, or for not just the feminine, for women, people in female bodies especially, to understand is, how do you fight? Okay, how do you use your Mars energy? I'll say more about that. If you have questions, leave them down in the comments. And feeling your anger safely, feeling anger in ways that's not destructive to you or your family. And then Venus in Taurus is like waking up and being like, look at the condition of what I've created and look at my physical condition. Okay, it's the feminine energy being like, yo, what have you done with what I gave you? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's like letting someone stay in your house, right? You're going on holiday and they're going to house sit for you, and you come back and they wreck the place. Venus in Taurus is like, I gave you, Taurus being physicality, material space, possessions. I gave you shit and you fucked it up. That's what Venus and Taurus is saying. And also, it's also the physical dwelling. The divine feminine, and the question to you right now is also, how are you destroying your physical temple, which is your body itself, okay? And that, because it's divine feminine energy, this applies to people in both female and male bodies, okay? The question to you, Venus in Taurus, is, are you taking care of your physical temple? Because this is part of the work. Okay, so we have Mars in Cancer teaching us how to fight. We've got Venus in Taurus looking at what we've created and what we own and what we're doing with it. But here's the gift. We have Uranus in Taurus to and it's a very long transit. It's going to be there for years and years and years and years. Now, Uranus we associate with the Aquarius energy. Aquarius is ruled by both Saturn and Uranus, and the gift here is that Aquarius takes Saturn, existing structures, form, patriarchy, what is here now, tradition. It looks at it and it uses Uranus, flashes of insight, wisdom, future thinking, and says, what needs to be created in its stead? If this is what we have, how can this be more progressive? How can this be better? Aquarius is a humanitarian. How... Email address if you want to be part of the team. If you check my post on my page, all the details are there, but I'll say it to you here: leonanicole@gmail.com. And Nicole's got an H in it, Nichole. leonanicole@gmail.com. And thank you, because so many people have reached out to me already, and I really, really, really appreciate that. So Uranus and Taurus is like, how do we progressively expand in ways that is better for more people? How can, it's the humanitarian approach, and that's the gift right now. As all of this is happening, Uranus and Taurus here is like, let's, you know, I don't have the card out, but Uranus and Taurus would also be the Tower card in tarot. You know, when the lightning bolts are hitting the tower and the two people are getting chucked out. That's what's happening to us culturally, but the purpose is to rebuild in a more sustainable way, and that's the current energy. Note change. 1 second. Okay, cool. So I feel like a lot of what I'm saying, some of the pieces, the threads of what I'm saying could do with their own video altogether. So Spirit, give me time and wisdom. The next card, sorry, wrong card. Oshamare here. Rainbow Spirit. Snake embodiment. Scorpio energy again. The message here is transformation, and also the cyclical nature of transformation. See how the snake's body is winding. Most of us think about progress or healing as something linear, straight. We go from here and we go up. Everything gets better and better and better and better and better. It does not work that way. It always is in a loop, okay? It's always in a spiral motion. And what happens with the spiral is that if you're at point A and you go round, even if you're going upwards, you always come back to the same point from a higher vantage. And so the message from Oshamare is that actually, from a spiritual perspective, some of the very destructive things happening politically right now is for our benefit. Now, this sounds wild, and I don't say this carelessly, because it's not really, in many ways, it won't be for the benefit of specific individuals. There are a lot of people who are going to be affected very negatively by this experience, or by these laws, or by the attacks on feminine in different ways. But collectively, it's for our benefit, and I'll tell you why. The other thing about the snake energy and Scorpio energy is release and shedding, okay? The way a snake sheds its skin. And the destruction of that's happening on a political level is to release what currently exists, because it wasn't working for us. It was not good. And we can get very comfortable. Do you know what I mean? We can get comfortable and we can feel like, well, we've got certain rights and maybe we're looking at other areas, but when we get attacked in a certain place and there's a sense of destruction, that's when we can say, oh, we don't want to rebuild the same thing, we want to create something else. And that is the cycle of destruction, okay? Destroy, rebuild, destroy, rebuild. And so the message from Oshamare is, yes, it's painful. And I'm going to be honest, the other message from Oshamare is that there will be death itself, not death as a concept, physical death. People will die. Let's keep it 100. There will be people who will lose their lives in this world as an effect of this, of the attacks on feminine in general and the specific political things I've mentioned. It will happen. That's true. And I'm holding space and compassion for a second about that. But Scorpio is the dark night, and it is about going through that the threat of death itself, that dark night, to rebirth into a different form of light. And so the cycle is, we take 2 steps forward we take 2 steps backwards to take 5 steps forward. And this is a step backwards. What's happening to the feminine right now? Let's not play. It's a step backwards. I described all the ways that we've experienced liberation. Yes. Do you know what I mean? We're being resisted. We're being pushed back. But don't let that make you think you can't take 50 steps forward. You can. That's the way the cycle works. Okay, so that's Oshimare's encouraging message to us. The last message from this part is the 9 of Swords in reverse. I'll show it to you upright because it's got a bird with like all of these rifles coming for it, and it's trying to take cover in the trees. Well, this message is in the reverse. It's actually saying don't bother trying to take cover. This is not a time to run and hide. And I'm saying that to feminine energy and specifically to those in female bodies, to women, because we don't always tap into our warrior and we don't always tap into our protector and our provider. I'll caveat that because mothers definitely do. So we'll do it for somebody else, but not necessarily for ourselves. And at times like this, not that I'm saying that women won't engage politically, because women will. But a lot of the time we run and hide and expect the masculine to do that work. And the message is that we can't run and hide right now. We can't just be like, oh, things are really terrible. We're just going to go home and kiss our kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can't. We have to physically show up. I'm going to check my notes. Okay, so when I had the message from Spirit that we can't run and hide, my next question was, how do we embody the archetypes of healing? But I'm going to pause and read your comments. Sis, please continue on your path as you are so necessary in this period. We see and feel your calling. Thank you so much. Love you. And have to leave, but thank you for so much for your wisdom. I feel healed in this difficult present. Thank you so much for being here. I will post the full anyway, so everyone will be able to come back and watch it at different points. And for those of you who've just come in, welcome. So we're at the part now where let me have some water. 1 second. Yes, healing. When I was younger, I was one of those people who used to say that I didn't like water. Crazy. I love it now. I was addicted to sugar, to be honest, and that's why. So the message is from Spirit. What archetypes can we embody so that we don't end up just running away? Okay, how do we do this? Now, I'll start with the last message because it's important. Warrior was the first archetype, which is what I'm talking about, and which is the Mars and Cancer energy we need to address. But there's several cards before that. And this is the thing, even politically, sometimes we engage, we mobilize, we try to fight back, we become this without doing the other parts of the process. I want to talk about the other parts of the process, the process that are involved in that. So the first part, child nature. Hey, child nature. This is the first archetype to embody. The message really here is that our destructive relationship to this earth, to the planet that we live on, is reflected in how we engage and deal with mothers, okay, so physical mothers who birth, and also women, those in female bodies, and also feminine energy, which is about the home space, both the energetic home and the physical home that we live in. So it's saying that we are so destructive as to the planet. We have a terrible relationship with nature. Our food industry is disgusting. The way we treat animals, I mean, the violent practices with which we kill has literally made our meat so unfit for consumption. So there's all of that. And it's saying that it's symptomatic. It's part of our consciousness. That is that if we treat our physical home in that way, of course we treat the feminine energy in the same way. So part of the healing and part of the embodiment is repairing our connection to nature. It sounds esoteric, it sounds hippie, it's necessary. Why? Because also our connection to nature is also our ancestral connection. Some of you have wood spirits, some of you have water spirits. Do you know what I mean? You need to connect to nature. You need to give nature its rightful space. You need to respect it. For me, my bedroom is practically a garden. There's more space for plants than there is for me in here. We need to repair our relationships. And I was thinking about this on the Quote is Full podcast. They were talking about this concepts of like the 5p bag. What kind of bullshit is this 5p bag? it's so weird to me. Like, first of all, where is the money from these 5p bags going to? I'm really interested to know this, because if we're saying that plastic is destroying the planet, and also, obviously, we know that the corporations in the industry are doing much more damage than individuals. I think that's really, really true. And not that we shouldn't take personal responsibility, but we need corporate accountability as well. But if plastic's destroying the planet, how do we... it's mad to me that now we just pay for the plastic. I just feel like, what have you done? Just expanded your profits? Like, it's nuts. Like, I'm like, this is wild. So, listen, we got to do better. There's that. The second message, storyteller. This is important. The storyteller message here is that you need to talk about mothering and birthing, okay? Those of you who've had physical children, those of you who've even birthed creative projects, you need to talk about the concept and the energy of mothering out loud. You need to share your stories. You need to talk to each other about it. And then those of you who've had abortions, terminations, those of you who've made that choice, you need to talk about that. You need to talk about the process. You need to talk about it. We're not doing it to convince anybody, okay? It's not about, if I tell you my story, maybe you won't take my rights away. That's not the conversation I'm having here. We tell those stories for us, okay? We tell those stories of mothering and of choosing not to mother, both of those things. We tell both of those stories as ways to connect and repair our connections with each other, as ways to hold space. We need to speak about them more with each other. We need healing witnessing. It's going to repair our connections to each other. Okay. The next message. Archetypes we can embody. Guide. My archetype. Or the archetype I live through. The message really here is that we need to learn to seek spiritual counsel before warfare. So most of us, we've really lost that relationship between the oracle or the sage or the shaman and the warrior, okay? We don't have that relationship intact in contemporary society, or it's what should be its contemporary iterations of it. So when we go to war, whether it's intellectual war, whether it's legislative war, whether it's physically battling people, whatever it is, we don't do spiritual consultation. We have to stop that presumptuous energy, because there's a reason for it. One, when you consult your spiritual leader, when we consult our spirit guides and we integrate the spirit realm, we get good strategy. Most of us, things happen, we think it's crazy, and we jump straight into warrior energy and we want to get out there. We can't. We need to ask for guidance. We need to ask for the right successful strategy. I have some very complex thoughts on this. I pray Spirit gives me the time to sit and write about it. The other part of this is that we need protection. We need to be under spiritual jurisdiction. We need protection. We need, if I'm saying the concept of this reading is that feminine energy is under attack, part of seeking spiritual guidance and wisdom is actually coming back under protection. And we are wandering unprotected because we don't have knowledge and we don't understand our ancestral ancient traditions and systems, okay? So we're just out here being decimated and snatched up. We need to find our ways back to protection. The other part of this message is inspiration and encouragement. The spirit needs to be strengthened. The attacks that we're under are almost relentless, okay? Living in this world, I'm telling you, sometimes I get extreme fatigue, or what's the word I'm looking for? Disillusionment, where it's just like more of this. Your spirit can get weary. So seeking your spiritual guide is about receiving inspiration and encouragement so that you're willing and able and ready to show up for battle again. And then it's also ritual empowerment, which I won't speak about in detail here. But when we're doing physical acts of resistance, it needs to be supported with ritual acts. If you think, you know, people talk about the Illuminati and stuff. It's weird. I can't even get into that here. But if you think that the powers that be, if you think those in our political system are not engaging ritual practice for the use of power, for the use of oppression, you're crazy, okay? They absolutely are. If you think they don't follow astrology while you're here saying it's nonsense, you're nuts, okay? I shouldn't say that. God forgive me. I didn't want to say you're nuts. It's that's slander. You're naive is what I should say. So, guide here. Spiritual practices, going to our spiritual leaders, going to our teachers can help us integrate ritual empowerment as well behind our external efforts in the world. This is the binding of the feminine and the masculine energy here, shaman and warrior. Okay, we've got networker. This is the other archetype that we need to embody. And now I'll say here that this archetype is specifically supported by Elegua, the Orisha. He showed up with this message this morning when I was consulting. The message for the networker is share information and share resources, okay? It's part of why we need to talk to each other. Share information, share resources, share strategy of how you want to address the attacks on the feminine. Networks are super, super, super important in our response to what's happening to us, both in terms of political engagement, but also creative endeavors, because I really care about reconstruction. After the process of death must be creativity and creation, and we need to use that Uranus energy to conceive of ideas that aren't just a repeat of what's been before. We need to birth new ideas into reality, and that requires network and conversation, and we need networks of support so that when we're doing creative ventures, when we're doing community organizing, when we're doing businesses that are healthy for our communities, we get the network that we need to see those things come to fruition, and they're not always dying at the seeding stage. Blessings to you too. And then, of course, the last one. Now, this is the warrior archetype. Some of you actually have warrior spirits. Some of you are... You know how I said that my archetype is... There's a lot of archetypes I live through, but I was talking about my role is to show you the spiritual overlay on the physical so that you understand how to transcend or break free of physical limitations in terms of our political system and operate on a spiritual level. That's my particular calling. Some of you are really called to be a warrior. You are fighters, and there's lots of tactics around fighting. Why is this camera suddenly really blurry? Or maybe it's my eyes. But with this warrior energy here, it's the last piece of the puzzle, okay? That's when we've got those other things in place, then we're ready to fight. Then we're ready for Mars and Cancer, and we go to war to protect our homes and to protect our physical bodies and to protect the things that we really care about. That's when we're ready for it. And it's okay. We don't need to shirk away from the warrior. Like I said, we don't need to act like violence is something that can never be used. Destruction is necessary, okay, but we need to make sure that we've got the right infrastructure of wisdom and righteousness in place around how we go about this. And I'll give you the example of like Jesus in the temple when they're perverting the religious tradition by selling and doing all kinds of things in the temple. Jesus comes in and is not like in this story. Jesus isn't like, look man, this isn't really good. Just please try to do things differently. Jesus walks in and knocks the tables down and mashes up the place. Okay? And that's really the energy right now. And let me tell you why it's the energy. And this is the last part of what I'm saying here today. I spent 2 hours on Instagram today. That was my reminder. I have a 2-hour cap, generally speaking. Bear with me for a second because I'm looking for... that was it. So the last question I asked, and then what we'll discuss before I go today, after I was asking what archetypes can we embody to address the external warfare we need to be engaged in, my next question was what archetypes can we embody, or what healing messages are there for the internal feminine? Because I've been talking about what we do in the world. Now, what do we do within ourselves, both men and women, non-binary, trans? How do we address our internal feminine energy? First message, I'll just say straight off that these cards are very Eurocentric, but I still like them for the messages, but yo, it is what it is. Kali, look at Kali here. That's the first message here, goddess of destruction. So it's a confirmation of what I'm saying to you about the Scorpio energy and the need for death and destruction right now, and the need for violence, and the need for the feminine to fuck shit up. Like, it's super, super, super necessary. So this is Kali energy, and it's saying, yes, internally we need to embrace that fire. Oh, 26 minutes remaining. I'm going to come back because I'm going to finish this message. So I'm going to end this 26 seconds. I'm going to end this live and then come back with the second part. See you in a second. And